It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
It's about to go down, y'all. I'm Cathey Armias.
And I'm Mark Williams, and I'm here with my most awesome friend, the phenomenal TED coach, TED speaker, TED organizer, and Cathey is an inspiring persuasion and marketing expert.
Oh, and if you don't know Mark Williams right now, you don't know anything. Mark is an international and champion speaker, coach. He's actually even an English teacher. That stuff comes out every once in a while. Father of three, husband, and just beautiful human being. Oh, love Mark Williams, and we love our show. And with us today, oh my God, my beautiful friend, Sophie Reverdi all the way from Paris, France. Beautiful, gorgeous. It's nighttime for her. Sophie, just to tell you a little bit of her journey, when she was 18 years old, she was the first person in France to get the vertical banded gastroplasty surgery. And it was performed by the doctor who actually invented it, which is Dr. Edward Mason. And Sophie then just, went through a lot of issues. Like it helped her with her weight challenges that she struggled with her whole life, which we're going to touch on. Very interesting things happened to her. But Sophie's has so much compassion and empathy and love for other people. Her whole life, even when she was a child, she was like, I don't want anybody to suffer like this. So she founded a program called Smart and Light, where she helps people to not have to go through what she did. And so her beautiful idea today, Mark, is this: obesity is not a fatality. It's a reversible disease. Obesity is not a fatality. It's a reversible disease. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this. Yes, Sophie, yes. Welcome to our show. I am so glad.
Thank you, Cathey. Thank you, Mark. I'm so flattered to be with both of you and to have been chosen to be part of this incredible experience and to be able to speak about this life battle of mine. And thank you. I'm flattered. I'm proud. I'm happy, and I have a lot of things to say.
I know you do it, Sophie, and so we want to get to it. But I first want to, Mark and I, thank you from the bottom of our heart, because it's people like you that are in the world right now that are causing the biggest impact, because obesity is a huge problem in this world right now. And you have dedicated your entire life. You think about this constantly, and you've created so many great concepts and ideas. And ultimately, we're going to base this conversation because you're working on a TED Talk that you're going to be giving on a stage someday. So we're going to coach you today in the space of like how to take all the knowledge you've gathered your entire life and how to put it in something as impactful as a TED Talk. So Sophie, just give us a little bit of background from when you were a child. I specifically want you to tell the audience about how you ended up coming to the United States for the first time and going to camp. So give us a little bit of that background. It's so interesting.
Well, yes, I was born in a family of Eastern European immigrants. After World War II, and we had loads of different influences and roots, but my parents had like a tough time during the war, and obviously they didn't have enough food. So when they arrived in France and they made a new career and a new start in life, their obsession became food. So I was raised in an atmosphere of eating a lot of food, and there were amazing dishes every day on the table. And so the big thing was eating, and we were overeating. And I was a kind of result of the consumption society, of after war. I mean, I was born much later than war, because I was born in the 60s, but still they were very influenced by that. And so food was a big thing. And with my little sister and I, we had nannies, where we had one nanny each, and we were overfed. And then I became addict to food. So around 5 years old, I was already obese, and very much obese. And when I was 18, I was in morbid obesity, and I was weighing 130 kilos, which is about 260 pounds. And I'm very short, so that was a very, very huge problem. And what happened is that a French doctor told me about a new surgery, a new invention in America that could help me. And so it was a very big deal in my family, because my parents were very scared that I would do that, and they were reluctant, and they spoke to people they knew in America, surgeons and doctors, and everybody told them, oh, she shouldn't do it, because this is that doctor is in Iowa City, and it's a surgery for fat cowboys, and it's butchery, and she shouldn't do it. So of course, I mean, my parents didn't want me to go. So I had to start a battle with them, because I was convinced that if I didn't do the surgery, I would die, and that I wouldn't find a way out, because I was also a victim, or let's say a Kobe, you know, those animals in labs, from the diet industry of that time, because my parents took me guinea pig. I couldn't find the word. Of the diet industry of the time. And so they'd send me everywhere. I was sent to America when I was 12 to a Weight Watchers summer camp. And I escaped the summer camp because I was starving. We were badly treated. I was like the thinner person. I was the thinner kid in the whole camp, and the children were like very much oversized compared to me. And so on one hand, it was interesting for me, because in France, I was like a lonely case. I thought I was the pioneer in the entire world. But when I arrived in America, I realized that the kids were much more huge than me. But it was strange, because they were less complex. Because they were used to an XXL society around them. And but when I realized like how they treated us in the camp, I thought, this is so insane, because they would starve us, then they would whistle us like if we were cows, cattle. They would make us run for hours when we couldn't even walk. So I thought, this is ridiculous. And I went to them a few times. And by the way, that's where I learned English, because when I arrived in America, I didn't speak a word of English. But after a week, I had to speak, because I had to tell them that what they were doing was wrong. And they didn't listen to me, of course. And so one day I just ran out, and I was 12 years old, and I was walking by myself on the roads of Pennsylvania back to New York, because I had a sister who lived in New York. So yeah. And when I was 18, so after that doctor told me about Edward
Sophie,
Mates.
Let me stop you here for 1 second, because I'm sure Marc, I see Marc's face, and I know your story, Sophie, but I want to put a point on that really quick, because we're trying to take your idea and we want to bring it to the world. And there's always that question of like why. We always have these three things that we ask people. Why is your idea extraordinary? Why are you the best person to talk about this? And then how will this idea impact the lives of other people? And we're getting really heavy right now into the space of why you're the best person to talk about this.
Yes.
And I have never, ever, ever heard of a camp like this before I talked to you. And so this is something maybe eye-opening to a lot of people that are listening that don't even know that this was going on, and that you were sent all the way to America, in Pennsylvania somewhere, at this camp and all the things. I mean, it sounds like a just horrific experience. And at that moment that you had, I'm trying to like repeat back what she said, Mark, right?
Yes.
Like she had to learn English. Did you hear what she just said? She had to learn English in order to tell them that they were wrong.
Yes.
And this is kind of where her idea was born, right? Because you also said, Sophie, that you came to America being the anomaly in France, like being kind of the only one of a kind in France, and people weren't struggling with obesity at that time. And you came to the United States and saw that there was a bigger problem. We were ahead of this curve, if you will, I guess. And so in that moment, Mark, like I'm trying, this is like a great story where I believe this is where her story was really, really born here in this space. And this makes her the perfect person to be talking about this. And of course, if we fast forward, she spent so much of her career from when she was an adult, helping other people, helping other countries, helping, trying to help change the industry from the inside out, which Sophie always talks about, and it's near impossible because there's a lot of money involved. But let's get to the heart of the matter. Mark, I know you have some questions for her.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, just the image of you walking after you, and you used the word escape, walking from Pennsylvania to New York. Now I'm a walker. Cathey has put us on some walking challenges, but that's
all the way.
No, I'm sure you didn't walk all the way, but just the image of that after trying to plead with them that they were doing the wrong thing, right? And so you just brought to light that at a young enough age, you understood something that people who were running a program, who were supposed to be the experts at this, you understood something that they did not understand. And so what I'd like to ask you, Sophie, is not so much what you pointed out that they were doing wrong, whether it was the starving you, the whistling everybody like cattle, the
running, the running.
What? I would love to know, what was the answer? What should they have done? What have you learned to do that works to help people to reverse obesity?
Well, actually, exactly the opposite. Because first of all, I'm a coach now for 20 years. And the first thing I do with my clients is tell them I love them and teach them how to love themselves again. So I'm more like a mother and a best friend than a counselor whistling, like in a military camp. By the way, I just want to say that there are still camps like that today, and especially in China for kids. But let's go back to the subject, to the question. So yes, I'm doing exactly the opposite. So I'm not starving people. I'm feeding people. I'm overfeeding people with amazing food. So I'm teaching them how to cook amazing food that they can eat at will, because starving is not the answer. And then I forbid my clients to run. I advise them to walk. I advise them to go to a swimming pool. I advise them to do soft sports. But I forbid them, and I've been forbidding all my sport coaches that worked with me, saying, if I hear that you've asked someone to run, I'm going to be very upset. Because it's maybe the worst thing that someone with overweight can do to himself, for his heart, for his bones, for everything. And also for his mental. Because when you're overweight, you cannot run, and that's it. So so I thank in a way my experience, because if I didn't go there, I wouldn't have found out the exact opposite solution that I've been doing in my work for the last 20 years very successfully. And all the people that I've been coaching, I would say 95% of them has learned how to love themselves, how to cook and eat at will the most amazing food, how to take care of themselves, how to start moving again, and how to get back to a normal life. So I'm very happy that I was able to come out with such a great solution for the people I'm looking after.
Cathey, I hear two words, and part of this is based on the discussion we had with Sophie prior. I hear these two words: stimulation and stipulation. Right? Because a lot of times when we think of a stipulation, it's like, all right, you have to do these, and these are the conditions. You have to run every day. You have to stop eating. You have to starve yourself. You have to, those are the stipulations.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is stimulation, right? You're talking about the reverse, right? Helping people to do things that they love, right? And respect, right? So, stimulating people. I love that. I love that you said that you treat your clients like a mother figure. You overfeed them with love. You overfeed them with respect. You overfeed them with the reverse of what they normally were giving. Overfeeding obese people. Interesting.
And the beautiful thing is that I create such an amazing link with my clients, and also because they're so intimate with me, they all become my children, even if they're older than me.
So I'm going to make a real vulnerable statement here. Sophie actually coached my daughter, and my daughter Allison was very, very much struggling with weight. And she had some genetic dispositions on her father's side of the family that made her very susceptible to having weight problems. And it'll definitely make me tear up to think about how much she loved Allison. But to this day, and Sophie coached her a couple of years, although Sophie's going to be her coach and mother for life, but to this day, Allison felt loved and felt respected and felt like she just wasn't this, she was her own person, and that she could be, she could eat healthy and lose the weight. And she still to this day makes really great choices, and she's kept all the weight off, and it's been amazing. You transform her mind. You made her think like a different person, and made her, she is so confident in herself and loves who she is. It's amazing.
She's my baby. I mean, she's your baby. I will always love her like my baby. And you know how excited I was when I came after Allison lost weight. I traveled like a year later to come and meet Cathey and Allison and hold them in my arms, because I had this need of being with them. And of course, Allison, she's like one of my children. And
here's always the issue, Sophie. Mark and I know this when we're, especially in the space of a TED Talk. So now we're trying to take all this, and Sophie used the word magic. We're trying to take all this magic, and we're only trying to get people to see it from one angle, Sophie, because all we need to do is get them interested in this idea, to explore what you're saying. And there's so many people talking about obesity and weight, but nobody can say it the way that Sophie can.
No,
and I'm not even close. And Mark, I think you touched on something that I'd like to explore, because I thought it was a good catchphrase. It's not how you stipulate, it's how you stimulate.
Ooh, I mean, I like that.
Right? It's a good catchphrase. But, and that could be a supporting thing, because I don't think it's obviously I don't think it's the main idea. I actually really love, Sophie, your main idea of obesity is not a fatality, it's a reversible disease. actually, I can imagine that being the title. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what we need to play out, because I think that will attract people's attention, and I think it's unique enough. But I think we need to talk about where Sophie changes everything up. And I would say it's this. This is my opinion right now.
Okay.
Everything that the diet industry, everything that anybody's made millions of dollars off of, Sophie's saying it's exactly the opposite of all that. You could take all of that and put it in one big camp, no pun intended, like one big plate. And all of that, she's basically saying is the exact opposite.
That's where the transition is. That's exactly where the transition is. When you think about, Sophie, your opening story, and how that point that Cathey pointed out earlier, when you learned when you learned English, I can't even speak the right language. When you learned English to correct them, they didn't hear you. You took that walk. When you mentioned taking that walk, that to me is such a visual and strong transition into. Nobody would listen to me before.
Yeah.
I have an audience now to listen to what I wanted to tell them. If they wouldn't listen, hopefully the rest of the world will listen. That obesity is not a fatality. It is a reversible disease.
It is. And also reversible disease that doesn't require surgery, because when I left Camp Colling in Pennsylvania, I was 12. And of course, if I had all the ideas, I was still a little girl. So my past with obesity was not over. So it took an end after I had the surgery. And I had to go through surgery because at the time, because I was a little girl and then a teenager, I didn't have the tools, and I didn't know. I mean, I had the dream of what I wanted to do one day, which was to be able to set a program and allowing people to eat at will, to do soft sports and soft activities, to be loved, to be taught, to be stimulated, to be educated in a very loving way. But I had to go through this last step of my obese life, which was the surgery. And it's only after the surgery that I was able to start really working on my program. But what I want to say is today, I'm not encouraging people to go to surgery. And I'm actually fighting surgery because surgery, in a way, made me lose the weight. But on the other hand, 35 years later, I'm still handicapped, not very much, not very heavily, because of the surgery. So, for instance, when I was operated, they told me I was gonna vomit for 6 months. But 37 years later, it sometimes it happens that I vomit again because of my surgery. So now I'm used to it, but it was a very big heartache for many, many years. And it's an invasive method. And actually, I was very lucky because Edward Mason, who is an incredible human being, he kept in touch with me, and now he's 97 years old, and but until a few years ago, we exchanged so many letters, and he told me the most amazing thing, and one of his letters is standing on my website. He said to me that I had found a non-invasive method that could save the life of millions of people in the world.
Wow.
Waiting for a treatment. And his testimony is on my website, in all my books. I speak about this incredible man everywhere, because he knew that he launched this incredible method with the surgery that effectively saved lives, but he also knew that it was very invasive. well, I found a way to not go through surgery and have the same results and better results because there's no surgery. So the body is, intact, and people just learn a new way to cook and to feed themselves, and they're becoming their own coaches for life. So that's like one of our punchline in Smart in Life, because I don't want people to come back to me 6 months later saying, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not interested, because what I'm interested is telling them that they can become their own coach for life. And when they do, they can also coach their whole family. Because when you have someone obese in a family, usually they're not the only one. Their brothers, their parents, their aunts, their children. So, and it's a way to spread the message, So if you make them coach, it's very, very interesting.
I see where you're going, Marc. Go.
Wait.
I see it. I feel it.
My mind is blown, because here's what I'm hearing you say, Sophie, that I think is really powerful. You're not talking about dropping or losing the weight on the body. You're talking about dropping the weight that's on the mind. That's what I heard, right? Because ultimately what you're talking about, right, is the love and the respect, the acceptance, the joy, all of that is mental, right? And you are changing the entire industry by taking the focus off the body and putting the focus on the mind. You cannot lose the weight in your body until you lose the weight that you are carrying in your mind. That's
Yeah. Sophie, too, you said something that I think is really critical that people are starting to really understand, is that your environment impacts you so much. And when you said, that you don't want them to come back, you want them to be their own coaches, but you want them to be the coaches for their family. You even described in your own family, where does obesity come from? It comes from many times environment. I mean, I've always thought about the psychology of like taking, and you can take this with any two people, but usually it would be like a partnership, but husband, wife, or somebody you're dating, or a partner. And if they eat worse than you do, or they have bad habits as far as like not exercising, you will tend to veer towards the worst. And you'll kind of tell yourself, well, I eat better than them. And so you start to make excuses. And I think a lot of families fall into this trap. They've grown up eating. I mean, I know it from my Italian side of the family. There's like, I can barely eat any of the things that I grew up loving and eating. But it's the family, it's this tradition and this culture that's carried on into our environment that we not only, Marc, need to change our own mind, but we need to go back to our loving environments and understand and help them understand too what, how we could be better to our bodies and ourselves, I guess. So Marc, okay, here's the thing. I want to help her, and I think we're getting closer, which is really good. This is one of those topics that is so big. There's big money. There's big issues. This is a global pandemic in and of itself. There's people
and Cathey, if I can just say one thing, it's also the big figures of 7,000 people dying every day in the world of obesity.
Wow.
7,000?
7,000 people every day?
Every day.
7,000 people every day.
So as far as diseases go, where does it fall? Number like?
It's the main disease in the world.
It's what?
And it's the number one disease in the world.
Obesity, because it's related to many other types of fatalities. Is that correct? I want to make sure I'm getting that right.
Because of the figures, because it's 7,000 people per day, every day. So I can send you the link of those information, and I write it everywhere. It's like the most incredible flea of humanity. It's the biggest world disease, and it's also including diabetes. I mean, there's a child.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
every second, I think.
It's the disease that causes so many other diseases, right?
Yes.
It's the disease that is the mother. It's the mother disease of all of these under children disease. I just made that up, but like diseases that fall underneath it. That makes a lot of sense, Sophie. And so getting back to that heart of your idea of like, so if we go back to the idea again, let's strip away everything for a second. Go back to the idea. There's this idea of obesity is not a fatality, it's a reversible disease. We need to position, the idea really needs to be connected to how can we reverse it? What's the first step? At the end of a talk, so like just imagine for 1 second, you're giving a TED talk. What's the last thing that you want to say to the audience? What do you want them to do or think or feel or change or adjust? Or let's start there. Because there's so much other stuff we can go through. So let's start with that.
I would tell you to love yourself and trust me to teach you how to cook and how to eat.
How do I, when you say love yourself, what does that mean? What does that look like?
I think that means that you need to trust me and you need to trust yourself, because my work will be, if I work with you, is to make you love yourself and make you sure, certain of your ability to succeed. Because what is very difficult when you're obese is to get back the faith that you're able to change. Because people who are obese, they've tried so many things that they have no more faith. So they have no more faith in the industry, but first of all, they have no more faith in themselves. So, and also they are addicted to food, because we can't avoid saying that food is also an addiction. When you have a drug addict, with heroin, you give him methadone, you know. If you have a food addict and you starve him, where's the methadone, you know? So it can't be that brutal. You have to, you know, why should people starve? When my clients, for instance, they eat at will. If they want to eat 100 times a day, they can. But they have to go through the list of my program. I'm working now on an app with one of my sons that's going to be called the Magic List. And this app is gonna be able to provide all sorts of menus and of tips and of information. It's going to be very accessible, and we'll launch it first in France, but then I hope we'll launch it in America. But I mean, the food industry today is very responsible as well of the way people are eating. If one of them would be ethical enough to partner with me, we would be able to save many people.
I have to put a wrench in this, though. This is where this always gets tricky in these spaces. And this isn't, Sophie, your topic is not the only space that gets tricky in here. You have to in order for this idea to live beyond you, you can't tie it to anything of yours. Meaning, so, and I know you're not trying to, but this is also where it just gets tricky, because you've spent your whole life and you're like, well, the problem is right now they don't know the magic list. They don't understand how to love themselves. They don't understand that they can eat good food. I think we need to maybe start with something I heard that maybe I think would be a good start, is for them to understand that food addiction is real. Like, I think that's something we can get somebody on, because I think at the end of her talk, what I would like for people to see in this, Marc, and I would love them to turn to somebody like Sophie, but I also think there's other people like Sophie out there that have had to go through a lot of horrific stuff and have landed on some of the same conclusions she has. Nobody has Sophie's life or experience. Don't get me wrong. Like I know how much she cares and loves the people that she works with, but we have to be able in a TED Talk to empower and inspire somebody to do something that they can take their own steps and do. And even if step 2 looks like, oh, I have to get professional help, or, but step 1, and that's why I loved it that you were hitting on the, like, what does it mean to love yourself? I picked up on the food addiction. I think people need to recognize when they have an addiction, like, maybe there's lots of people that think, oh, my whole family eats this way. I don't exercise enough, because the world will tell you something different.
Yeah, you're totally right, because admitting that obesity is a disease is step 1, but it's not the easiest step.
But that's the thing, Sophie, though. Your job isn't to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your goal always in like a TED Talk or with an idea is to say there might be a marathon of things somebody needs to do, or like think of it like a ladder. You can't get them from the bottom, from the bottom rung to the top in one talk or in one, but you need to inspire them to go, you know what? I need to get to the top of that ladder, and I'm going to take the next step. And then when they get to the next step, they can figure out where the next step is. You might be getting people at different rungs in the ladder, right? You might hit somebody that's ground floor. You might hit somebody that's 3rd rung up. But I think the first thing we need to do is make them see that it's a climbable ladder. That's how I'm feeling. Marc, how are you feeling about that?
I think you're right. I think you don't go through the entire list. I do think that there's a focus right now on what that first or primary item on the list is. I also think it's the idea behind the list. And I still go back to this, that if we want to talk about approaching this in a different way, everybody's talking about body weight. You're still talking about mental weight. You're still talking about carrying the weight on your mind, right? All of that love and acceptance and everything you're talking about, you can partner with every industry leader you want to. But if I am the CEO of Food Anonymous, whatever you want to call it, I'll partner with you, Sophie, as long as we get everybody to start thinking about losing 20 pounds. And you're saying, no, before you lose the 20 pounds, we've got to get up here first. We've got to drop the weight up here first. It starts with that. And so I stick with that because that's so different. And that, to me, that's the core behind everything you're talking about. And that's what makes this idea different. And when Cathey talks about this whole idea that maybe one of the things is admitting that you need a problem or admitting that you needed to go to a coach, I'm not talking about going to the gym to lose weight. I'm talking about going to a coach like Sophie, but check this out. Sophie, you said earlier, the whole idea is for them to not need you anymore.
Yeah.
For them to become their own coaches. And I can't become my own coach until I drop this weight.
Yeah. Oh my God, Marc, this is so beautiful. Here's a good angle too. It's kind of the obesity mindset. And now that I really think about it, I used to abuse food when I was young. And at some point I was like, I put a hard stop and I was like, okay, I can't eat sugar. That's when I stopped eating sugar in my life and stuff like that. It didn't matter what my actual weight was because I was playing heavy sports and doing stuff. I actually had an obesity mindset at some point. I mean, you just blew my mind, Marc, because I started thinking about that. And you won't stay in a healthy space in your life, no matter if it's weight or exercise or smoking or until you deal with the mental part of it. So I think you nailed something there, Marc. And Sophie, you already talk about it. You read something off of your program that already talks about it. I think Marc is really honing into a good space here of where to put. Because our job as coaches, Sophie, many times is to say, oh my God, you have so many amazing things to talk about. We need to find the sliver that is true and beautiful, and that will connect, be really universal and will connect to everybody, whether that's a 12-year-old girl who's had to go to another country and go to a camp, or it's a 67-year-old woman or man that's struggled their whole life with this obesity mindset and they can't break it. I really love this. I think that that's a really good angle to hit. I would try to think that way, Sophie, if you're going to give a talk, because then at the end of the talk, but you can empower and inspire people to go, I just first want you to change I want to get you out of that space where whether you're sitting here and you're 2 pounds overweight, no pounds overweight, or 100 pounds overweight, or whatever, that you get rid of the weight in your mind. You change the obesity mindset. And maybe obesity mindset's not what you would want to use. I don't know. But Sophie, you said one time too, a term, well, it doesn't really matter in this space, but you said that there was a term for even like morbidly obese. There was even one that was worse than obese, right?
Yeah, monstrous obesity.
Oh, monstrous obesity. I heard that from Sophie for the first time. I never heard that before, Mark. And I was like, wow, we even have another term.
Actually, it exists only in America.
Oh, the actual weight, the weight of it? Wow.
The term?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, not the term. Well, the physicality.
The condition.
The condition, yeah.
Yeah. Because America has 25 years of advance compared to the rest of the world with obesity. Because obesity started in America a long time ago. So
we were on the forefront of obesity.
So in those 25 years. So for instance, today there are more obese in China than in America, because there are 500 million obese in China, but they are maybe more morbidly obese, but none are monstrously obese. And only America has those cases because they were created with the time. And that it has become a genetic mutation as well. But there must be some monstrous obesity cases here and there, but it specifically is in America.
Wow.
But think about how further along that thinking is then. It's way more of a reversal of thought. Like you have to reverse that obesity mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I'm afraid, Cathey, is that people, they don't really understand this kind of sentences. And also, I'm not particularly, how can I say, it's not that I'm not focusing on the, it's a global, it's a holistic approach. So mental, it doesn't really come first before the body. It's all together that comes first. I don't know how to explain. If the mental is not there, it's not going to work. That's for sure. There needs to be an harmony between the mental and the body, more than a harmony, like a fusion, a total understanding. But my approach is a holistic approach. I don't know if you know what I mean by holistic.
Oh yeah.
But it means global. It's very global because obesity has many different facets.
Yeah.
And because it touches everything. It touches the mental. It touches the soul. It touches the skin. It touches the heart. It touches the cells.
Yeah.
It touches the family. It touches the sexual relationship. It touches the social relationship. It touches the work. It touches the children. It touches the image you give to other people. It's infinite. It's infinite. You are judged. Even people who love you judges you. It's like one of the worst disease. Doctors who are supposed to care for you are judging you. I mean, it's just a plague. It's very, very, very difficult. So if you don't come with a global approach, you cannot help someone. You need
Okay,
to
so alternative ending here again. This is one of those topics we have to focus on what that end would be, because if we can't figure that out, you can
it's hard.
7,000 hours and say everything. And people, we're lucky to have this time with you, Sophie, but not everybody's going to have that much time. We have to inspire the world to think differently about this. So, okay, let's open this up for a second, because I'm still hearing a mental problem. And you're right. I know exactly what you mean. It's a major social problem. It's a major relational thing. It's major. You judge people in your own family, and you think certain things, and doctors are looking at you in a certain way. So now maybe we're attacking the mental piece on a different way. There's an astigmatism to it, but you're basically saying that it's a disease. Like, we have to treat it like a disease. Don't treat it. Don't just say, hey, this is a choice. I want to eat a lot and I want to be obese or whatever. And again, on the personal level, I have the obesity mindset, but on the social level or the global or, the worldwide level, the holistic level, like you said, it's more like we have to have love and compassion and understand that this person's struggling with a disease.
But what I can tell you is that when I get out of there, my idea was to one day be able to teach children, because I wanted to be able to make a camp for children that would be exactly the opposite, where they would learn how to cook amazing food, where they could eat at will, where they could play, and where I could teach them how to look better, how to dress better, how to feel better with themselves, how to feel important. So I designed like a dream camp that was the opposite of the Weight Watchers summer camp, with like loads of activities that could make them feel great, like theater or stuff like that, writing. And what was important was for me not to be considered, and those counselors like whistling us, I thought was unreal, So
yes. Here's what I ultimately heard. They didn't understand us.
Yeah, I heard that. It was like the first thing out of her mouth.
You don't understand us. And this talk is so much about helping people, not only those who are trying to help you to understand you, but it's also about getting you to the point where you can understand or get a greater understanding of yourself, right? So that you can, I still go back to this whole idea of overfeeding your obesity, right? But you're talking about overfeeding it with love and acceptance and all of those different holistic things. Sophie, here's what I'd like to ask you here at this point. You started off with obesity is not a fatality, it's a reversible disease. That's how we started. And we might still have a ways to go. But what I'm curious about is, at this point, where have you seen your idea, or how have you seen your idea transform thus far?
The problem is that, and we tried before, like to build up my talk, and there is so many things to say that it's very difficult for me to and that because we tried for many months together. It's very hard for me to say what the idea is exactly, because if I have to keep away my program and my business, then I don't really know how to say things.
I don't
in the program, so
I don't think that's true, though, Sophie. You said a lot of great things today that had nothing to do with your program. I think that a lot of people struggle in this space, Sophie. I worked with another client that I worked with him actually a year and a half, and he struggled with something similar where he had so much knowledge in his area and he had so many beautiful things to talk about. At some point, I was like, literally put all your thoughts into a hat, pull one out and just talk about that. And it's a place to start. Yeah, there's tons of people. You don't want to just sit on the sidelines and not talk about your idea because there's too much to talk about. You have to at some point.
Actually, I have to be a bit coward, but I would prefer you to choose an idea.
Well, we can choose it for you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's not being a coward. It's not being a coward. It's understanding.
Maybe it's not coward the word, but you know, because also don't forget that English is also not my mother language. But yes, I don't know what angle to take. It's I have to admit I don't know what angle to take.
Yeah, and you know, and that's okay. I think you know, Marc kind of said this before, and we were working on stuff, Sophie, and actually. We came up with an idea that was very good, and you had a very good draft of a talk going that you could easily go back to that same thing that you were working on and use that. Now we're talking about different things, and I think some of the things we mentioned today you could run with in a talk. You could do TED Talks out of this. You could have many interviews, conversation, as you already do. But at some point, our goal is to get you to say universally, if I'm going to empower people to make this change, and if we're looking at something 50 years from now, we're not even around anymore, 50 years from now, how has something you said today started to impact and change the world in a way that we change how we handle this space? That's what we're looking for. We want you to empower, inspire the world to think differently about this and to take some kind of action. And so it's a big task. It is, but it also requires just, you know, picking an angle. I mean, for me, many times I think education is good, to just give somebody the smallest little bit of hope and information. Don't give them everything. A friend of mine yesterday, Robert, called it value vomit, where you vomit too much. You're giving somebody so much value that it becomes vomit and it's not useful. But if you can actually just give them the one little thing, they can build from it.
Yeah, that's the best angle. Education is, I don't even know why I didn't think about it before. But so it's great that after all those hours of conversation, you guys came out with that angle, which is the best thing because it makes me very comfortable in a way.
Nice.
Yeah, I do think education, that's the thing. Many times these ideas, which are big and complex, you just first need to inspire people. You need to educate them on a little piece and inspire them to want to go to the library, right? And the library.
Oh, I like that. How can people find out more about you so they can be educated by you? You know,
yeah, like what website do you want? Yeah.
Where can they find so they can be educated even more?
Well, on my website, I guess. And I have books on Amazon, and I've wrote
what's your website, Sophie?
It's smartandlight.com, and it's in French and English, so you can take a look at it.
Perfect. Smartandlight.com. Sophie Reverdi, masterful educator on the whole idea about how obesity is not a fatality. It's an irreversible disease. And it all starts with educating everyone about how to live a different life. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love it too. And for everybody out there who's watching, anybody who's got an idea just like Sophie, or anybody else who's been joining us on It's About to Go Down, if you would like to have a conversation with us so we can help you build upon your idea, reach more people, and have a greater impact on the world, send an email to marcandcathey@gmail.com. That's MarcCathey@gmail.com. Got to spell it out because you got to get it right. And you can join us on It's About to Go Down. Thank you, Sophie, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so
Sophie.
much. Thank you, darling. Thank you, both of you. Thank you very much.